Well, welcome back to Polymarket Insiders. I am Flip Pideaux. It is September 16th, and we are talking NFT futures, the latest innovation on Polymarket. Whether you think NFTs are in a bubble, a fad, the wave of the future, this brand new asset class of NFT derivatives offers the potential for big financial gains and, of course, the potential market signal as to the health and future of the NFT industry itself. We've got an amazing panel to help us get to the bottom of it today, so let's get to it. All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining us today. And if you are joining us live at 1 p.m. here on the East Coast, feel free to ask any questions you may have of our panel during the show right there in the YouTube chat window. If you are not joining us live, catching this on the replay, you can engage with us on Twitter. We're at Old Bull TV, and our DMs are always open. Finally, please take just a minute to subscribe to the channel while you're here. The little red button down there. It takes just a second. And with that housekeeping out of the way, today we are talking about Polymarket's brand new market category, which is tied to the price of non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. Now, these NFT derivatives have quickly become a hit, offering traders a new way to speculate on the price direction of various collections and offering collectors a potential hedge against their holdings in some of the most popular NFT collections. Today, we have got a fantastic panel, 3 Polymarket pros joining us for an inside look at this brave new world of NFT futures. So let's take a look at who we've got in the virtual studio today. There, just to my right on screen, is a face familiar to fans of the show. He's talked about crypto stuff with us a lot in the past, I think on probably 3 or even 4 episodes in the past. Please welcome back Avi Eisenberg. Hey, Avi, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. And just next to Avi, we see Adam Sherman. You may know him, recognize him from Twitter or the Polymarket or other Discords where he is Squee451. Adam making his debut appearance on Polymarket Insiders today. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Doing great. Wanna watch that number go up.
Yeah, as it seems to be doing. We're going to get into that in just a minute. But before we do, let's also introduce Franklin, also making his first appearance today. You may know him on Twitter as Election Day Mad One, or simply Franklin on the Discords. But Franklin, glad you could join us today. How you doing? I think you're still muted, Franklin. Still muted. We're not hearing you. Anyway, people can see. They know where you are. They know you're on the right of their screen there. While you get that taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and oops, we've lost your video there too. I'm sure we're going to get sorted out in just a minute. But in the meantime, Avi, I want to throw it to you first to give, for those folks who may not have a full understanding about what NFTs are, what NFT derivatives are. We're not going to go into the whole nuts and bolts of how these kinds of tokens work, but take a stab at giving us like the 10, 15 second version of what is this asset class and how these markets work on Polymarket.
NFTs are basically art on the blockchain for people to throw money around and speculate, but with art.
Fair enough. It's as good a definition as any, right? So it's a non-fungible, meaning a unique token, often representing some kind of a series of metadata or images or whatever else. In this case, these are basically pictorial collections, artwork that people buy either because they want to actually collect them or based on speculation that the price is going to go up. Interestingly, though, with the advent of these new markets on Poly, and if we can bring up the page that shows the current active markets on Poly tied to NFTs, this is really the first time you can, at least in a kind of robust way, speculate against the price, right? So you could go out and buy, and then you see here a number of names, if you're into the NFT world, maybe familiar to you, of some of the more popular collections, CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, Yacht Club, things like this. You can speculate that the prices will go up by simply buying them. But if you are of the mind that this industry has quickly become manic and so the prices are very bubbly, you can go and short the prices by taking the opposing position on Polymarket. And interestingly, they have 2 kinds of markets on Poly right now. We're going to get into the specifics here shortly, but there are ones that are binary, as most of the Polymarket markets are, simply will the price of the cheapest, basically, token in the collection be above or below X dollars or X Ethereum on such and such date. But then they also have scalar markets, so they're actually pegged to what will be that floor price in that collection on such and such date. And that's what's been really interesting to see move around. The say 3 weeks or so that they've been on Polymarket, but certainly in the last week or two, and really especially just in the last several hours, as the price action has really gotten interesting. Adam, can I throw it to you to kind of give us a brief lay of the land here? I want to get into all three of your sort of overall thesis of where this market is going, but to catch people up on the price action, specifically on CryptoPunks, but on these popular collections generally, what's this little roller coaster been like in recent days?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few giant buyers of these collections. They're trackable across the blockchain. You can see the accounts doing them. Obviously, the CryptoPunks bot is helpful. And so getting notifications for the floor price is pretty helpful. And also recognizing when an account that has a lot of Ethereum in it starts buying CryptoPunks, the floor price of the scalar market is likely to go up much faster than you see the floor price of the CryptoPunk market go up. So when these accounts with 1,000 Ether buy 6 CryptoPunks, you can go a little all in earlier on the scalar market than I would say I'd normally be comfortable with. And the binary market's also really interesting to price. I have an options trading background, and so for like binary, will something go above $3 like ADA? That's really easy. There's formulas for it. You can look at the current price, you can look at the volatility, you can compute what the value should be and see what the market is. But with something like a $10,000 limited edition where whales control it all and the market's kind of cornered, it's really interesting to see how are people estimating the odds at this, because it's very different than anything else that's trading out there when there's such a limited supply.
For sure, limited supply, and as you mentioned, dominated, at least in some of these collections, overwhelmingly by certain whales. Just as we see whale traders often dominating the Polymarket markets, you can have whale collectors or speculators dominating the NFT collections. Is there, and I'll toss this over to Franklin if we've got him back online here. I'm curious, your sense in terms of whether these markets are susceptible to manipulation, either sort of traditional financial market, prediction market manipulation, or actual insiders here that can drive the price or have sort of a specialized knowledge of where that price is going to be going, given their outsized influence perhaps in these specific collections. What's your sense in terms of whether an average investor can get a fair shake here, or they're competing against asymmetrically informed whales that they don't stand a chance against?
All right, first of all, can you guys hear me now?
We can. Hey, how are you?
Okay, good. Sorry about earlier. So
no problem.
I agree. I think eventually, once Polymarket gets a lot bigger and a lot more known, and if there are more NFT related markets, they can be susceptible to manipulation, because I don't think in the CryptoPunk market it would be, because if you look at the the volume of the Polymarket trading and the amount of liquidity, it's not nearly the cost of even buying one CryptoPunk. So to be able to control listings for $300,000, $400,000 NFTs just to win maybe $2,000 or $3,000 in the Polymarket is probably not the best idea, because if you list too low to try to win that market, somebody's going to buy a CryptoPunk and flip it for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in a matter of hours. So the blue chip, there's a lot of debate on what's a blue chip NFT this week. The blue chip NFT, which CryptoPunk clearly is, should be safe from these types of manipulations. But if once Polymarket, if it gets more decentralized and people can start their own market based on floor prices, all it takes is one or two people to undercut the floor below a certain amount just to manipulate, let's say, one of those scalar markets. So you have to be careful when you're trading on a particular limited particular market where the assets are a limited quantity and controlled by possibly 25 to 50% ownership, to make sure that you don't get surprised at the very end of a market by somebody wash trading or listing low or scooping up the floor just to bring the floor price up so they can win in Polymarket, or they could be hedging their bets or doing some arbitrage. So there's a lot of ways to make money in both pots here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
I
want
want
to
to
take a
just
look. Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that, especially if you're trading these on poly markets for the first time, that I think looking at that floor price as a cost of manipulation is a great way, like Franklin was saying. So loot market 8F, much more likely that it could be manipulated at the end than the CryptoPunks market. And so I think
Hmm.
it's important to put that point out there for kind of newer traders who are like, I'm willing to accept a much bigger deviation in the market for loot because I know it can change much faster. Whereas I wouldn't accept such a large deviation in the market for the crypto punks. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned about the scalar markets, which I think should be mentioned, is that as soon as it moves away from 50-50, the returns are asymmetric, right? So you have a
Right.
maximum gain when you're buying the upside. And so the scalar market should always trail for that reason. A little bit, whatever the favored market is, should always be a little behind, with rare exceptions that you think you found this mass CryptoPunk buyer and it's just going to shoot up, in which case you can lift the
Right.
market if you want.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I like how you sort of put that in terms of the floor price being roughly the price, the minimum buy-in for manipulation. In other words, and then these prices too, for folks that aren't familiar with it, have become pretty astronomical. I mean, we're talking about 100 being that reference point. That's 100 Ethereum, right? Which is what now, 3,500 a piece. So we're talking about something that costs $350,000. Is that, do I have that right for the lowest priced CryptoPunk? In fact, I see
Worth
a
every
comment here
penny
in
of
the
it. Do you,
chat from from
Yeah, it's
Hercules saying, "I
on
just
that
found this channel
website.
and it's awesome. I sold my house to buy a CryptoPunk last night." That's, I mean, that's no, I don't know if he's being serious, but there's no exaggeration. These little, sort of 8-bit JPEGs are priced like single family homes.
I
So
think the roadmap you can upload into the simulation, you become your CryptoPunk, and you walk through the metaverse. I mean, this is underpriced, if anything. I've got some TA. Did you get my TA?
I did. I'm not sure if that is loaded or not. Tell us your overall thesis though. It sounds like you're overall bullish on
Oh,
the
I
market.
feel
You
the
think these are
TA is
all
so
steal?
important here. But the overall thesis is basically it started at basically zero. Right now it's 350,000. At the current rate of growth, 2025, these will be worth $3.5 billion each. Not everyone can afford that. Yeah. So.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the problem though. Say if it's a bargain at any price, just because it's been going up, right? Eventually we run out of money. Eventually there's there's no bigger sucker to sell it to, right? So I mean,
Then we're
there's got to
living
be
in
some.
the simulation as our CryptoPunks. Money is no good to us.
Gotcha. Fair enough. So you're a buyer. Suffice it to say, Avi, we haven't heard too much from you yet. What's your take on this? First of all, did you come to these markets as a pure speculator, or because you had a pre-existing interest in some of these NFT collections?
So I was looking originally to hedge my NFT collection, and so I've been taking short positions overall. Um, I've built up a decent sized position now. Um, so I have a bunch of NFTs from other collections, and so at that point, that when I first came to this, I didn't have any punks, but I had some other stuff. But I felt that all the NFTs are sort of correlated now, so you could basically, if you could short CryptoPunk as like a reasonable hedge to other
Mhm.
NFTs. And then a couple of days ago, I picked up a punk, um, and so now I have a uh, much much more of an interest in hedging the punk floor directly. And so I've increased my position in the short punk on Polymarket as part in order to hedge that.
So despite on Poly you're being net short, it sounds like your net position overall is net long NFTs, despite the partial hedge. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean Poly is just not liquid enough at this point to get the entirety of the hedge that I would like to. Like I would want to get hedged like at least half a punk, so like 100 150,000 worth on Poly, which I can't really do
Yeah.
right now at this level of liquidity.
We should talk about
And
some OTC action.
We should.
Yeah, no, because we're
You're
right now. I'm
you're
counter
crypto.
trading you. Like I have no. I'm long NFTs through Poly.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a CryptoPunk maxi.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I know a bunch of rich poker players who bought all of these crypto punks and are not going to be selling them anytime soon. They trade them internally. They get to control a lot of the market. they've been into NFTs for a very long time. It's crazy to see top traders reaching out to ex-poker players who are now NFT masters. It blows my mind.
So
I
big?
I saw punks early and I kept passing on them.
Let's dig into this a little more. How big is this world, right? And so there's a finite number of these actual crypto punks, right, or in any of these popular collections. How concentrated is the ownership? I mean, are there 100 of these sort of big dominant players, or are there 1,000, 10,000?
It's all
about
over.
2,500 or so punk owners on the website where you briefly saw the number of the prices of punks. You can go and it should tell you either how many owners there are, or you can click on a list of owners and you just scroll down to the bottom. It'll tell you it gives everybody's Ethereum address. So from 1 down to 2,600. That's how many people.
But that's just a minimum. That's a maximum number. It's much likelier 500.
So this number of wallets
spread out across
right, that own
wallets.
The punks, it could be 500 people, and that could be concentrated. Half of them could be in 5 different wallets, right? Or wallets controlled by 5 different people. Interesting. Well, I want to talk about the price action a little bit more, especially in CryptoPunks, just because it's been so volatile. Looking back, and I'm here looking at the Scalar market. I'm not sure if we can bring it on screen in real time, but the Scalar market, looking back, well, I guess it's only been live for about a week and a half, something like that. But it was predicting a close, and this is as of September 21st, so just 5 days from now, getting pretty close to expiration. Had it drifted down from low 90s to as low as, what is this, 83 just yesterday, and popped to where it is now, pegged right at about 100, which of course is also the strike price for the binary market. And this Scalar market on Poly has a range of 70 to 135. So they anticipate the possibility of some big swings here. Take your best guess 5 days from now. If you had to peg the number, all 3 of you, where do you put it within that range, 70 to 135? I'm going to go ahead and guess that at least 2 of you think higher than 100, but tell us, how quickly you expect this to move and how swiftly, how dramatically.
I'm guessing that we just had a big pump. I think that'll slightly mean reverse. So I'm going to guess we're going to be at 95 in 5 days.
That's a pretty good estimate. I mean, it's we're right there at 100. Looks like 100.
That's basically what happened. Yeah. If we don't get another pump, that's basically what happens. If we get another pump, then it's probably 105 to 110.
So that 100 binary market might actually turn out to be pretty interesting, right? Because something settles at 100 versus 101. It's not a huge difference in your returns, but if it winds up with a penny or two, or a fraction of an Ethereum above or below 100, it has a huge swing on the Polymarket.
Yeah. So it's the scalar versus binary is for 2 different types of traders. You can put your money right now all in either long or short and barely move the price. And you might not get that much of a return if it levels out, 3 or 4% deviation. But in the binary market, you're all in or you're all out with that 100 number, and it's based off who's listing it. I am long just because, if anybody's new to this market, we had a big pump up to the 140s maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's not like we are at all-time high CryptoPunk prices. So there's just it had a big, huge, sudden drop to, I guess, accumulate a lot of new owners, or maybe some whales. Maybe they deflated the price themselves to get back in. But all it takes is one company, one celebrity to really shift the market. The recent pump up to 144 was partly because of Visa. It was around 50 or 60 when Visa announced that they bought one, and that bumped it all the way up to about 80 or 90. So that's what I'm counting on in the long-term binary market. In 5 days from now, maybe that won't happen. Usually on Fridays and the weekends, I see a lot of pumping in NFTs, so that's just a heads up. But like I said, 5 days is longer than the weekend.
Right.
So also go
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, also with CryptoPunks, you've got all these new celebrity endorsements, Serena Williams and Alexis Ohanian, I believe they're punks. And Jason Derulo's rocking a CryptoPunk profile picture. Gary V, who is somebody. I mean, they're just a bunch of celebrities getting into this world and validating it, and hedge funds and VC firms buying NFTs for massive amounts of money and justifying it to their investors. And the art world has always been a great place for money laundering and speculation. And so I just feel the connection with crypto. It's like, peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
So
Adam, the other thing I wanted to ask you as an options trader, oftentimes when you talk about a traditional options contract on a commodity that has a nearly inexhaustible supply, one of the sort of typical characteristics is that at least ideally, the price in the options market won't have an undue impact on the underlying commodity. Here, where by definition, by design, the tokens
Wait, you're saying the price of the options market won't have an effect on the underlying commodity? What did you see with GameStop all year?
No, I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm saying that's sort of the premise, at least, in terms of writing options on things with relatively inexhaustible supply, which here, where you have a strictly finite supply, and as Avi was mentioning before, the Polymarket liquidity volume is not really scaled to the point here where he can even put on as big a natural hedge as he wants to. But should it grow, should it ramp significantly from here, can you see a scenario where the price in the Polymarket markets starts to inform the speculation on the underlying NFT markets rather than vice versa?
No, because the delta is not large enough. Oh, sorry.
Right. No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, essentially the delta is not large enough on the Polymarket scalar market. When you have people if you have people who are allowed to sell call options on the floor price of CryptoPunks, and somebody sells a lot of them and starts buying it up, a feedback loop can get unbelievably nasty. I mean, we saw it when there was basically an unlimited supply of stock to offer, and we can see it again when there's a limited supply if options market becomes a thing, and getting people. You're short an asset you can't buy. Don't get short an asset you can't buy would be my big suggestion.
Yep. Good advice.
If Polymarket gets, if we pump that liquidity up to 6, 7, 8 figures, who knows, I hope that would happen. You can wake up and check the Polymarket speculation, whether it's a scalar or a binary market for a particular NFT, and figure out if you should buy or sell your NFT. The people who are trying to make money in Polymarket will be just as tuned in to the floor prices or to the NFT market as the people who own the NFTs. So I could see that. I could see them going in tandem. There are already automated market maker Uniswap, SushiSwap tokens that are pegged to floor NFTs. One called Punk, P-U-N-K. On SushiSwap, where it's basically what we were talking about. You can speculate on the price of a floor CryptoPunk by buying that token. Once you own 1.0 of those tokens, you can burn the token and receive a CryptoPunk in return. So NFTX, the group that runs it, started their own marketplace. They have a wallet of hundreds or so CryptoPunks where you can trade in and out, and people use that to kind of speculate without you can dollar cost average into a pump without having to spend $350,000 or so dollars. So hopefully Polymarket can get to a level of that where it can have like a symbiotic relationship with NFT markets where you can trade on there or buy actual NFTs.
Avi, what do you think this world looks like a year from now, 2 years from now? Presumably, you all think that these are sufficiently non-faddish that they'll exist in some capacity. But do you think these major collections will still exist? Will still have a market cap, so to speak, of at least as large as they have now? Or is eventually do things get overheated to the point that there is a big crash, even if it goes 10x from here and then comes down 90%, so it's still right here? That often can then lead to sort of a chilling effect, a cooling off. They can sort of leave, communities in the wilderness. You have a shakeout, maybe improving then sort of utility of the ones that survive. We see a lot of similar patterns in the sort of crypto space generally. But do you think, is the NFT world writ large destined for that kind of an overheated mania followed by a series of these cooling off crash periods,
So the
or
NFT
has
market
there been
is
any learning process that could through these last few years, through the various crypto cycles, that we may have a more kind of measured build out where this won't be as boom and bust driven?
yeah, the NFT market is very, very tied to the overall crypto market. So it's very path dependent here. If we get a crypto crash and a crypto winter, then NFTs are also going to be dead. And if crypto crashes 50%, NFTs are probably going to crash 80% or more. But if crypto continues, like even at these levels, or even at like 20% off or whatever of these levels, then NFTs are probably going to still hang around. And if crypto keeps going up, then NFTs are going to also have to keep going up. It's just like the various NFT booms are all very closely tied to crypto booms.
Adam, Franklin, you guys agree? I mean, these things are here to stay, or is this kind of a bubble that's on its way up? So grab your money when you can and get out.
I think that the major collections, the CryptoPunks, are going to be there forever. They had an incredibly good UI to start. So you see things like OpenSea employees buying their front page drop. So Larva Labs, they've had a fair drop. When you look at something like Loot, which had a clearly unfair, a gameable drop, which is just text on a page with nothing built behind it, I'd say 99% of NFTs, similar to 99% of crypto tokens, are probably not here to stay. They will exist, they'll build up a huge value, and then they will crash. But I guess it's possible that we'll be building up a multi-chain NFT type community. I'm interested to see what the ones who are building with projects and use cases in the future, if they're able to generate anything off it. I think similar to how Ethereum's UI in 2016 was pretty awful, trying to use crypto stuff on the internet was pretty awful. It still is, but it's gotten like light years better if anyone was doing it back then. That we're going to see how NFTs work and provide value, some sort of identity to their group, is going to evolve. And in 5 years, the NFTs of the future are going to be much more like your World of Warcraft in-game avatar with a bunch of custom shit you buy than it is displaying that you own this history of the first art piece on one of the first art pieces on the blockchain. Personally.
Franklin, what do you think? Sound reasonable?
Yeah, I mean these well, I said blue chip NFTs. We didn't talk about the Bored Apes much, but there's only 10,000 of each. Once a company buys it, once like a company like Visa buys it, they're not going to sell it or flip it. Once the poker wheels buy it, they're holding it for their grandkids. So eventually, there's going to be a supply shock, and the price of these blue chips will go higher and higher. It's just natural. The only way I could see a downturn is, like Avi said, if there's just a major disinterest in crypto and people start selling off. It's time to convert your crypto into cash. You got to get rid of these NFTs because there's no direct correlation or direct exchange to get cash from your NFTs yet, because you got to convert it to Ethereum first or whatever other blockchain you're on. In the future, 5-10 years from now, we use the word NFTs. So to me, that means non-fungible token. The word art is not in that at all. We're going to have a lot of tokens to represent what we use nowadays on pieces of paper. For example, a deed to a house, title to a car. That's the most important documents that we have. There's a lot of things that we have that's on paper. Pretty soon they'll just be electronic and easily more traceable in the blockchain, harder to fake and harder to forge. So be on the lookout for NFTs being used in utility far greater than the art and pictures that we are trading today.
Really quickly, I also want to mention for anyone considering getting into these NFTs, while I do generally agree with that Franklin's thesis, and I'm bullish on the blue chips, and Bored Ape has done incredibly well. I would say that the cashing out during a crash of NFTs is not like cashing out of crypto during a crash. And when you buy in and you're like, I'll be able to exit this at worst, this percent loss. No. If the market for NFTs goes, the floor is gone and you're 70% under like immediately. So don't invest in these things if you're a crypto investor and thinking, these have no liquidity. And similar to being short an asset you can't buy, being long an expensive asset that you're unable to sell is a very unpleasant experience. And I think people without trading experience do not have that kind of inherent knowledge. And that's how you see all these terrible stories on the news of people losing their life savings, going short or long options that they have no idea what the potential consequences are. So I just want to end on a word of caution for anyone getting into the NFT world. Follow Punk 6209's advice. It's all play money. You should only put anything in there. You're fine just losing forever. It's for the lulls, and hopefully you can flip it, but don't count on it.
That's very, very good advice. And contra Hercules in our chat, we do not recommend mortgaging your house, or I'm sorry, selling your house to buy a CryptoPunk, notwithstanding the incredible run up they've had. So buyer beware, caveat emptor, as Adam put very eloquently. And same goes for these various derivative products tied to these prices on Polymarket. Those are obviously also not without risk and not without potentially insane volatility. But what is sort of most interesting, at least to me, and why I wanted to have you guys on to help us break this down a little bit today, most interesting about the dawn of these new kinds of markets, this new asset class really on Poly, is that it does enable speculators and natural hedgers like Avi another way to get exposure on the upside and the downside in a linear scalar way or in a binary way to the underlying assets, to the underlying price movements. And I think to the extent that that's done transparently and robustly in a way that people can understand and can trust, that only helps to get us on a path of that somewhat perhaps more measured development here, if such can be said about NFTs, where having better price discovering, having more liquid markets, more interconnected, robust markets can only be helpful both in terms of price visibility, understanding kind of the mind of the market, and offering liquidity options such that you can go to take some exposure off by hedging, as Avi's doing, rather than simply go and liquidate a position when you feel that things are getting a little too frothy. So all in all, I think this is a really good development. I like to see Polymarket getting involved in this, and hopefully we'll see this product complex continue to be built out.
Well, I also love that, just particularly for hedging, Avi's happy when the price goes up. I'm happy when the price goes up. We have opposite sides of the bet. So Polymarket really has provided this win-win insurance option. And it's awesome to see when crypto and blockchain is able to do that.
Absolutely. It's a perfect use case for this kind of market. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Avi, you are at Avi_Eisen on Twitter, Adam Sherman at Squee451, Franklin at Election Day Mad1. We'll also put some links to any other projects, websites you guys might like to steer readers towards, and maybe some research tools too for traders that are just getting familiarized with the NFT space. But again, gentlemen, thank you for your time today. Hopefully we'll have you back on a future show to see how things are looking in the weeks and months ahead.
Thanks for having us. It was awesome to talk to you guys.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks everyone for joining us. See you next time. Happy trading.
Bye.